Hello, soulmates. You're now listening to Peppers of Stories meant to soothe the souls of women everywhere.
Okay. Is there anything that's on your heart that you want to make sure that we ensure our soulmates learn about? Because a lot of people go through loss and it just takes them out. Just takes them out.
Yeah, it's really that the fact that look, it does. Yeah, it does, and it's understandable, but it doesn't have to take them out. And while there's no one size fits all for everybody, the key thing I would love to bring out is if you can just find a way to channel that pain in honor of that person you've lost into something that would make them happy, then that will help your healing. It's just you have to choose it because it's not going to come to you. You're not going to feel like it. So if I can just get that message out there, then that will be a key message.
Okay.
And then the second one would just be at the end of the day that look, all going to face grief at some point or the other. Yeah.
Okay.
So what are you going to do with it? If you live long enough, you're going to lose somebody you love. So what do you want to do with that?
How do you make grief a gift?
How do you make a gift?
Yes. One of the things that you and I always bonded around, Salt, was the fact that we lost our mothers earlier in our lives. And while that's nobody's plan, that is absolutely nobody's plan. And, it's like the foundation of your life is kind of erupts, right? Because the mother, for some reason, is the thing you take for granted and you think you're going to always have your mom. And then you wake up one day and you don't. I think I revealed in one of our early episodes that my experience of losing my mom taught me lessons in self-reliance. When I talked about, it was a squirrel for me. A squirrel ended up inside my house. Girl, it was sitting on the mantelpiece and it was between me and the door to get out to go to school. But at this time, mom was in the hospital, dad was at work, and I was the only one. And I, in that moment, realized that help wasn't coming. I was going to have to be the help that I needed. And mom died days later. But it was one of those preparatory things for me that it was like, okay, God, is this what you were preparing me for? Once you lose someone, you see things through so many lenses. And that's how I chose to see that, is that in that moment, when I saw that squirrel and I just had to decide, am I going to let that stand in my way? And I found so much resolve. So how am I going to call my mom in the hospital and bother her with something like that? It was little did I know she would no longer be available for me to call. And it was going to be with me. It's going to be with the mirror. So I don't know if you can relate to what I'm sharing, but in the loss of
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Totally relate. Yeah, I was just going to say that I totally relate to that. But mine was kind of like in hindsight. In the moment, I didn't realize what was happening. But looking back now, the grief of losing my mom gifted me just that now stepping up to be the mother for my siblings. And that was a gift that kept on giving into me now, even being a mother to my own children, because I had a long time to practice with my sister and my brother, and even running a home. Yeah, because you became it, at 18, almost 18, there you are. Your whole life becomes secondary and you're just focused on what's going to happen to this 5-year-old and 15-year-old boy. Well, one thing that was immediate that my mother's death gifted me was the beginning of my spiritual walk with God, because it was at the foot of my mother's coffin during the vigil that I made a pact with God. I'm like, you know what? I do not know what you are doing, but if you are real and you keep my family together do not let my father farm out my siblings. I am going to give my life to you, and I'm going to serve you for the rest of my life. That was the moment. Yes.
Oh
And
my
God kept,
goodness.
yeah, that was a moment, lying there crying at the foot of her. Because I remember then, for some funny reason, the vigil was in the house and the coffin was in the house. And I was sitting at the foot of the coffin, and that was the prayer or the pact I made with God. That's one of the reasons why I believe in God to this day. Yes. So you are spot on. That
I feel
grief
you so
gifted
much,
me.
Saul. I feel
Yeah.
you so much because
Yeah.
mine didn't come, mine was definitely retrospective as well. I didn't realize some of the gifts that it gave me until I was looking back. When you remember, when I look back over my life, and you start just relating what was really happening, because things happen at this surface, and then things are happening down here, and then it's happening in the spiritual, where God is kind of holding things and directing it, and because He knows the middle end and even why He began. Oftentimes we get caught up in just the chapter that we're in and the page that we're on, or even the line that
Exactly.
we're on. And I love that God sometimes, it was the day that I recorded that particular episode. It was a walk that morning, Saul. A squirrel ran in front of me and it brought back that memory.
Wow.
And I remembered. So,
That memory.
yes, it just triggered it. And I was like, that was my moment. But I'll tell you what, losing my mom early gave me early responsibility because I was paying the bills. I was the youngest, so I didn't have any siblings to raise. I was 13, but I could write my dad's signature on the checks and pay the bills and mail things out and take care of my sister that was living in college. We're paying her rent, paying her bills. So I became responsible very early. So somebody was asking me, why are you taking early retirement? You're so young. I said, well, I've been working for 30 years straight out. But before that, I have always been responsible. I was more responsible than the baby of a family probably should be, because it was just me and my dad. Who was going to take care of the house? Who was going to? And
Exactly.
I think it made me grow up sooner. When I came into the
Yeah.
workplace, people would be like, where did your confidence come from? Where did how are you able to handle so many things? Even in a thing last year with my sister-in-law was making a speech about my husband, and she said, Patrinia can take shock. And I was like, take shock.
Hmm.
And I reflected on that. I have, resilience, shock absorber. I get it.
Resilience.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hence the name of my business is Resilience Resources for Life. That was what God told me. Need to be able to bounce back, bounce forward, and bounce even higher through your adversity. So hence Pepper Soup Stories is about reframing adversity. So I'm loving that we're getting a chance to talk today about how you repackage, reframe, and change the focus. You took the pain and made it into a purpose, and you allowed God to guide you. And one of the things that, we've known each other for probably almost 20 years now. What I'm getting that I never knew before was that the moment that you began your walk with God was at the foot of your mother's casket. That fear we all have that our families will be ripped apart, the fear that we have, we don't know if we're going to be able to make it through this, because nobody plans or calculates that they're going to lose the mother in their family. You just assume that's a given. And in the African American family, a lot of people didn't have fathers, but everybody had mothers. I felt like I was the exception. What I want to do is go ahead and give an introduction to our wonderful, wonderful guest today. Our particular episode is called From Pain to Purpose, reframing adversity into advantage, using grief as a gift and being able to elevate through that. There's none better that I can think of than Salt Essien-Nelson. At birth, she was named Abimbola, but she'll discuss how that transformation took place, because we call her Salt, chosen salt, salt of the earth. She'll walk you through how God gave her that name. But Saul Essien-Nelson is a multifaceted leader whose journey from French studies to advocacy exemplifies the power of purpose-driven transformation. Her life took a profound turn following the devastating loss of her sister, Shola Adefolalu Gaska, in December 2016. The unique bond between them began when Bola was almost 13. You know, sometimes you're surprised when they have the extra baby. Sometimes the parents are even surprised with the extra babies. But at 13, stepping into a maternal role for her newborn sister following her mother's passing when Shola was just 5 years old. This special relationship shaped both their lives, with Bola considering Shola her first child. The tragic loss of Shola at age 36 marked the most challenging period in Bola's life. Through divine intervention in July 2017, she transformed. And listen to the word transformed. We're going to talk about what that really means when you go from this to that. Often you don't even recognize it, right? But she transformed her grief, at least initially, into a hashtag Justice for Shali campaign. It was a powerful mission of hope by establishing the Shola Adefolalu, and Lord, charge it to my head and not my heart, but the Gaska Foundation, which I just love to call Shali Smiles Factory because it's the yellow and shining everywhere, right? But it's dedicated to supporting women and children in need. Her voice first emerged in 2009 through her blog, which later evolved into a powerful book, The Diary of a Desperate Niger Woman, touching countless lives. And I remember when this first came out, Saul, you were just like musing, kind of for yourself at first, and then realized it was a gifting for others. I was like, wow. So touching lives with authentic narrative. As a devoted Christian, wife, and mother, Salt successfully balances her corporate leadership role with her passion for social change. And she and I met in our corporate environment. We'll hit that in a minute. But through the foundation's work, she has created a platform that transforms pain into purpose, particularly advocating for those affected by domestic violence. When we look at domestic violence, it's not just the spouse, but the children and the well-being and just a sense of safety psychologically and physically. Her journey from being a blogger to author to foundation leader demonstrates how personal tragedy can be channeled. We get to control it to some extent. It can be challenged into meaningful social impact, embodying the principle that giving back can be both a healing journey and a powerful force for community transformation. Bola's story is a testament to the power of faith, resilience, and the transformative impact of choosing purpose over pain as she continues to honor Shola's memory by bringing smiles to others' faces through her foundation's initiatives. I'd like to just bring on to the show today Saul Essien-Nelson. Please join me in celebrating my sister as she comes on board. And just give us a little welcome introductory statement, Saul. We've heard your impressive bio, so just take us wherever you want us to go.
Oh, first of all, I just want to thank you for having me and to say compliments of a season to you and everyone who is listening, watching to this. I was telling Miriam, that I love the way you kind of like captured my life. I could not have done it any better. And I was going to steal that intro for sure and use it in the future. Thank you so much. It's funny when you hear your life through the eyes of others, you do say, I did that. Really? I lived that life. I'm living that life. Because in the moment, you're just living your life. You don't really know that this is what, kind of like the life and legacy that you're creating. But thank you for allowing me to see myself through through third parties. I'm really happy to be here and just to walk through how I've come to be the salt that I am today. You call me.
Yes, our whole purpose, Pepper Soup for the Soul, podcast is a flavorful
Yeah, I'm back.
blend of conversations, and
Do I
we're
just
here.
continue?
Yes, so some of what I wanted to just give a background around as you take us through how you transformed into salt is the Pepper Soup for the Soul. Pepper Soup Stories podcast is a flavorful blend of conversations, thought leaders, and experts. So, Salt has actually been called into this thought leadership and called into this expertise. Probably she didn't pick up the phone and call herself, but circumstances did. And many of our soulmates find themselves pulled into circumstances. And Salt is going to share with us today how she's been able to choose her response, choose how she wanted to show up in the circumstance. As she brings her stories and her insights, she'll be warming your heart and stimulating your mind. I know she does that for me because our mission is through storytelling, sharing strategies and real life practical ways to turn peppery circumstances that burn our eyes into flavorful, soothing pepper soup. That we will be able to connect with you, soulmate, that you'll be able to see yourself. Today, the story is about grief. Today, the story is about how to make grief into a gift, how to take pain and channel it into purpose. And if you're sitting currently in that pepper of pain, that pepper of grief, where you've lost someone, we want you to be able to see through Salt's story how you too might be able to transform. So, just as we talk about lemons into lemonade and Africa is pepper into pepper soup, and we will be grinding up Salt's story today to let us see how she's turned it into something that serves others. So, Salt, please tell us, how did you go from Abimbola to Salt?
Okay, so thank you. So that was actually another pepper story of my life. And as a Christian, I had kind of really fallen to the point where I was in that dark space where I was really, my negative talk, my self-talk was so negative, and I was just beating up on myself. It's a whole long story, but I'm going to summarize it. And in that moment, I just heard the voice of my Papa God. He just said to me, shush, shush, stop saying that about you, but not those things you're saying to yourself. And one of the words was trash. And it was like, you're not that, but still my salt. And he was speaking to me in my native language, Yoruba. So he said, Iyominiye, you are my salt. Forget what you think you've done or not done. Nothing has changed. So get up from where you are and go back into the world and go and be the salt I have called you to be. And that was like what saved me and brought me back from that dark space of that time. It was 2011 into 2012. And if you recall, Patrina, you might remember a time when it seemed like I was off social media. You know, I took down, the blog was like stalled. I wasn't on Facebook anymore. And that was what was happening in that space of time. And I thank God for that, because in that period, I learned that even as a Christian and even as a human being, anyone listening to me now, you can fail forward with God. Don't have to be what you've done.
You can fail forward with God. I love that.
You can use that failure, to project yourself forward, and at the same time saving others as well. And it also taught me in that period that I now changed from desperate Niger woman to salt, that you know what, up till today, never judge anybody, because you just never know. But for the grace of God, there go all of us. Never say never. Just, you have to count on the grace of God to keep you from falling into spaces that you just, in your pride, you think you can never fall into. And that was a huge lesson for me, because I thought I was good all by myself. And God had to show me that, excuse me, but for me, there's nothing good in you save Jesus Christ, madam. And all this I learned as I went through the process, that he was saving me from myself. So that fall, as bad as it was in the moment, it was saving me from my future self. Because if God had not brought me down so many steps on that ladder, who knows where I will end up being today, in my pride and my arrogance as a good Christian woman. Now I'm very clear. I'm very clear. I'm not good, though. I don't use any accolades for me. I am here just because of the grace of God, and those were the key lessons that I took away from there, and that's why I'm now salt of the earth. And over time, He's kind of opened me up more and more into what that really means, being salt of the earth. So yes, it's to season the world that I'm in. Yes, it's to preserve the environment I have, starting from my family. But He's also telling me more and more now that He's calling me to be salt, to surrender to His will, whichever way that might unfold. So be it through pain or loss or whatever, as the prayer goes, thy will be done. We say that so often, but do we really know what thy will be done means? Do we really accept it? So now I've moved from desperate Niger woman to salt. Now I'm chosen salt, chosen to surrender to the who I am today. And that's kind of like the summary of how I got there.
Identity is so important because what we call ourselves is what we'll answer to. You went
Correct.
from a negative self-talk where you're calling yourself trash. If you call yourself trash enough times, you'll begin to answer and you'll question why others are seeing you or perceiving you in a different way. I
Correct.
love that your story really helps us to see that seasons in that season. So up until that point, you were desperate and seeking.
Yep.
And you transformed, God took you down a peg and let you know it is by my might.
Yep.
Not by
Yep.
yours. So
Not by yours.
ego and all of those things,
No.
he takes us through those
Took it.
experiences to show
Yeah.
us. I use the expression for me, it was at the limit of my intellect that I discovered intuition. And intuition is hearing God for me.
Correct. I know Desperate Niger Woman was a name that I gave myself. That was self-given. Salt is God-given. And so when you call me that, you're agreeing with God as to who He has called me to be. So it's very meaningful to me.
Agreement is so important. You are exactly right, because we have these echo chambers these days of we put stories out, and if enough people say it is true. I love that you're speaking a truth that when enough people say it, is building an agreement and almost building a force, because the expectation, that salt will preserve, the salt will season. There's just so many biblical meanings around salt, and I love that you are putting on that identity and taking it into the world. So thank you for explaining that transformation. One of the things I want you to just maybe talk about is you are a French major. You have a degree in French, and you can do the parlez-vous français, say like that. Yes.
Parlez-vous français, oui? Yes.
Yes, you have reached my limit. I took some years of it, but I'm not gifted in we all have different strengths. And people always ask me, when you moved to Nigeria, did you learn the language? I said, thank God the language of business was English. But I know that one. But what I would say is, as a French major, and then, we met in Shell. You've been managing hotels before I came. And then I saw you go to HR, and then I saw you go to communications, and I don't know.
Right.
Then all of a sudden you're doing a blog. So just talk me through what made you pick up your pen?
So first to the French thing, it's so funny. The only reason why I studied French in uni was my favorite uncle studied modern languages at the University of Ife. And I loved him to bits, and I wanted to be just like him. And I said, I'm going to do the same thing as him. That's really the story behind the French. But as God will have it, I actually loved the language right from secondary school. So it was a no-brainer, and my first degree was just a breeze because I was just having fun, but I didn't know then, talk about how your life evolves through these little choices, that would be what will clinch my very first job for me, because I came out and my very first job was in a French bank in Nigeria. And the one criteria that they wanted was the person must be able to speak French. Who knew,
I love it.
Yeah, and that was how my journey into French became, and it started my career. And that first job for me was the cornerstone of my career. 33 plus years ago, commercial bank Credit Lyonnais in Nigeria. I spent 7 years there working as a PA to the GM for commercial. The best boss you could ever wish for as a first boss, to a greenhorn straight out of school who had never seen a computer, had no clue what Excel was, what Word was. He taught me. He was just happy I could speak French. And luckily he could speak English. He could speak English, but he just wanted to be able to speak French. And that helped me as well. Because when you're learning in university, you're learning theory. Having a French boss meant that I was speaking it every day, and then it just became part and parcel of who I was. Until today, many people think that, oh, have you lived in France? I'd never seen Paris. I'd never been there all of my life until like 2017. But people felt that my accent was like somebody who had lived there, and that was because of Mr. Ribu. I thank him to this day. But my writing started at that job. I was the author of the first ever franglais column in the bank's monthly newsletter. It was this thing I just came up with to try and teach people French, where I would write a column in a mix of French and English. Can you imagine? And that would help people kind of pick up. Yeah, it was called the franglais column by Abimbola, Essien-Nelson, and people used to look forward to it every month. And I authored that column for I think we started 2 years after I joined, but it's 5 years there. And that was where my love for writing actually began, Patricia. I didn't know it then, but that's where it began. I didn't know it then. I've kept a journal all of my life as a teen, but writing started at CBCLM. And when I left there 7 years as a confidential bilingual secretary to another job as a PA to the CEO of IBTC, Theodore Peterside, another great person to work with. Between Mr. Ribu and Mr. Peterside, my goodness, Patricia, all the administrative, organizational, interpersonal skills that form the foundation of who joined Shell is those two guys that built it into me. It's a blessing to have great bosses.
Yes.
But when I joined Shell, I was out of my depth, sort of. I don't even know how God orchestrated that. So it was a bit stressful. So I joined Shell after 15 years working in the banking industry, came in as a mature hire into this, like you said, I was head of trade, travels and immigrations, and I was like overseeing like 15 people, many of them older than me. And I was like, what is going on here? It was stressful. It was stressful. And somehow 3 years in 2009 into HR, I was learning, but the learning curve was very steep. I needed an outlet. And I was like, I needed to do something. And that's how the blog was born. It was an outlet for me to de-stress myself every evening after getting back from work. Having survived that day, delivered the best I could, it became a place where I could just like have a mental spa. This is how my day was. That's how the Diary of a Desperate Naija was born. It was looking for some place to go share my thoughts about my day, my struggles as this newfound corporate woman, still a wife, still with young children going through school and all of that. How am I going to juggle all these balls together and still come through pleasing God, excelling at my job, being a good wife, being a good mom? I didn't know anywhere else except to just write about it, and that helped me carry on in my job. So in a nutshell, that is how the blog started. That's how the writing started. It was just a personal space for me to decompress. And then people started reading it and saying, oh, thank you. This is so helpful. I'm like, what's going on here? And that was it. That was it.
So I grabbed that term of mental spa. I remember when I first started coaching, I was being coached, and it was Akene, since we both know Akene. She asked me, what did I desire? What did I do to unwind? And I realized that I was so consumed with all the things you're talking about, the work, the mom, the wife, the this, the this, the that. I was like, desire? Unwind.
Mm,
It was such an afterthought. What I love is that you figured out a way before self-care was at the front of people's,
yeah,
vocabulary. The mental spa of writing was
yeah,
your self-care, and look at how it cared for others,
yeah,
how it connected with other people.
exactly.
I mean, God will find ways to
That
make some of your pain, some of your troubles to be your triumph. And I just love
correct.
the way you were using. But what I want you to really pick out is and notice is where you're talking about the steep learning curve and stretching, but a few moments before you talked about gaining administrative skills, gaining organizational skills, gaining influence skills. You didn't call it that, but here is where I'm going. So many women get caught up in the job title that they had, personal assistant or this or that, and truly I was coaching a woman the other day, just informally. I was just getting vibes from her that she was running the whole freaking office, but she was almost what do you want to call it? Under the yoke of her title. So I asked her to begin to talk about what did she actually accomplish. And she talked about the organizational, she talked about the planning, she talked about getting the budget together and linking everything. And you begin to imagine that I am more than what my title suggests. So that when you got in those positions in managing hotels and travels, you truly were bringing to bear the fact that you've been basically leading your MD all this time, telling him what's on his schedule, prioritizing, identifying what needs to be done, now, soon, later, right? All of those skills, you built them perhaps in a subservient situation where you're reporting to someone, but the skills are legitimate nonetheless. So I'm hoping that our soulmates, regardless of what career or title or degree they have, I want them to begin to evaluate and see themselves through the capability that they have. See themselves through what they actually deliver. What are they enable to happen? And when we're packaging ourselves for different roles, we're able to then talk about what we can do, not in terms of a job title of a personal assistant or, that kind of thing, but talk about in terms of what outcomes we are able to bring. What skills did we build in the role of whatever we were doing that we can now repackage, move it to a new environment, and shine? Which is exactly what you did, Saul, when you came into hotel and travel, and organizing and figuring out what. So all the times that you had to meet the business traveler that was coming in to meet your boss, all of that whole protocol, knowing how to do the airport, you're like, wait a minute, I already know how to do this. All you had to do is then transfer it to others and build their own customer service and client servicing and facing skills. So the point I want to bring out is don't be yoked by titles. Be freed by capabilities.
Mm,
Being able to speak in terms of what I can do, what I do, what results I bring, what transformations happen as a result of
yeah,
me in the space. What is my odor? What is my
absolutely.
scent? What aroma do I bring to
That's it.
places? So even
That's
as
it. That's it. That's it. Absolutely. Yeah, I was gonna say you're spot on because I'm just telling you how I felt. But from the perspective of the people in my team and the leaders watching me, they had no clue I was struggling because I was just delivering. I was doing that. This was like my internal state of mind going on, and of course, imposter syndrome was real. But looking back now, you're absolutely correct, that if you talk to anybody in the team or anybody in the leadership in those times, I was a performer. I was doing the job that I was called to do. But these were just conflicts that was going on behind the scene. And that's what I now use to help, just like you're saying, to coach other people who maybe going through the same thing. Is just bring all of you to the table and
bring all of
give your
you.
bring all of you to the table, all of what you have to the table. I remember always going into the bathroom and really just praying if I had a meeting. You remember the LT with Tom Vrolic and co back
Yes.
then,
Yep.
and our boss Ted, he would take me and he would like, no, you can do it. Well, I'm coming. I'm like, no, but you did it. And so even just having leaders who believed in you help you to bring all that you had. Because when I left
Yes.
IBTC, Mr. Peterside, he in a meeting of everybody, he said, look, this lady may be my PA and all of that, but I tell you, in this whole organization, I see her as a rainmaker because she makes things happen. She makes things happen, So when you're feeling a bit confused and out of your depth, you have to pull back on these things that people have been said about you and what you've done before. And yes, help me, but I had to pull on, hey, you've worked 15 years, girl, you can do this, you know what to do. And then also pull on the people around me to deliver. And that's how because come on, where we worked. You don't get into that organization with you don't have what to
No,
give.
be small. No, be small.
No. So
we had to
I used
go
to tell
through
myself, exactly. I will tell myself that look, my girl, you got into this place, then please don't talk down on yourself. You can do it. But I think I always tell myself and my children that sometimes I think God allows us to be this way because if we didn't have a bit of that discomfort in ourselves, we will be so arrogant and proud, we'll be so proud.
Yes.
But sometimes He keeps us humble, these jitters with these fears. That's kind of like how I see it, because then you have to rely on Him and not just on yourself. So now I actually cherish it when I'm a bit uncomfortable. Even for something like this, I'm like, hey, am I sure it's Patrina or she'll have such high expectations? But it keeps me humble. It keeps me prepared, Yeah.
And when we look at stress, for example, there's a eustress, EU stress, and a distress. So the eustress is the one that makes us happy and makes us push. It makes us go for excellence because we want to be excellent, right?
Correct.
That excellence and eustress is right where you want to be. Where you then have a problem, and this is where we must self-monitor, is when eustress goes to distress. Distress becomes the thing that burns me out, depletes me. That also makes you begin to say, am I plugging into the whole me? Like for you, the writing became an outlet that I'm sure lifted you into your whole self. But anyway, I want to just share something because I was doing a coaching session this morning and God is just moving me to share this. I have something called a Gatha on the wall, and it's from a course that I did. It was talking about mindfulness and being mindful of your strengths. We talk about mindfulness a lot where they say be in the present moment. Something happens and you want to take a moment. But often people are mindful, but they don't know what do I do in that mindful. I'm pausing, but what am I pausing for? And what this course really taught us was in that pause, identify the strength that you carry that will transform that particular situation. So when we talk about the choice between stimuli and response, being able to harness your strengths actually means you need to know your strengths. So being able in that moment to say, what is going to serve me now? So here's the Gatha that goes with this. Breathing in, I see my strengths. Breathing out, I value my strengths. Breathing in, dwelling now on my strengths, dwelling in my strengths, and excelling, I express myself fully. I feel comfortable bringing my strengths into this situation because God has set them in me for a purpose. Yes. So soulmates, girl, we are all over the place, but this is how Bola and I relate. So that we could go here. So I am going to try to get back on the point.
I love it.
What you just said was just so powerful because often in our discomforts is where God is growing us. Often in our discomforts is when we're beginning to learn what we're really made of. And I need for all of us to be able to see that when the pepper comes sometimes, no, it's not comfortable at first. But if you sit in comfort all the time, we talk about that soft life. If you sit in comfort, you never build any muscle to do anything because there's no resistance.
No.
If you just go to the gym and lift air, nothing's going to happen. So know that in life, every adventure that God puts you on, you must believe there's a purpose, there's a lesson, there's some reason in this. So in your bio, You shared that the most profound impact for you. We talked initially about losing our mothers. We spent time on that, and then losing our sister. I've lost my sister too. I lost my sister in 2013. So I now know, girl, we got so much in common. Okay. All right. Anyway, so the profound impact of losing your sister Shola. How did the experience of losing someone who was both a sister and really a child, like a first child, how did that transform your life? And given that you raised her from age 5 after your mother's passing, how were you able to process? Kind of take us through how you process this deep loss and been able to channel it. Please bless us with that profound journey.
It's just to leap off what you said. I honestly don't know anything meaningful about my life or myself that didn't come from a place of pain or challenge. There's nothing meaningful or purposeful about me that honestly didn't come from a place of challenge. I'm not saying everybody has to go that way, but that has just been my story. And I kind of look at my life sometimes as, BSP before Shirley passing and ASP after Shirley passing. It's like two different lives. I thought I was living a meaningful life. Yes, I was working, I was blogging, I had children and all of that. But when I look at my life after Shirley passed and what I went through is like, how you have the gray man and then you have high definition color. It's like a bland, purposeless life, and then you now have a life in full color, purposeful, fulfilling destiny. But why did I have to make that transition through pain? I don't know. I prefer Shirley to be back here, and I really would take my sister back and continue living that bland life, but that's not God's sovereign will for me. Honestly, Shirley passing on was pivotal into the soul that you're talking to today. You probably won't even be talking to me if this was not my situation. Listen, but I lost my mother when I was just about to be 18, but the pain of that loss didn't start manifesting till I was like really married and grown and having children, and then you're like, oh, I miss my mom, I wish my mom was here. But it was also cushioned because I had a fantastic mother-in-law, so I didn't really feel the pain of my mom per se. When Shirley passed, oh my gosh. Remember, she was like a first child to me. She taught me, she prepared my heart to love. I understood what love meant because Shirley, when she passed, I felt like a part of me had died. It was like my first child had died. And God knew that if He didn't do something to save me, nothing was going to matter. Because I loved my children, I was married, but nothing mattered in that moment. And initially, the only way I could kind of like keep on living was when I was advocating, trying to figure out what happened to her. That's when, the whole hashtag justice for Shirley was born. That was me trying not to die. That was me trying not to go crazy.
Try not to die.
Try not to die. Try not to let my children think that also we don't matter, just your sister is more important. How could I let them believe that? But that was what I was feeling in that moment. And I also felt like so guilty that I had been blindsided. And I was like angry at God that I made a pact with you when this girl was 5 years old. Why would you keep that pact for 20-something years? And then now you dropped the ball. So all these emotions were going on inside of me, and I just used the campaign to try and put them aside and focus on the campaign, to the point where I almost lost my marriage. I was losing my mind still because nobody was answering me. The Nigerian government didn't have my time. The Polish government, who were a bit more responsive, were asking for things I couldn't give without the help of the Nigerian government. My husband was saying, you are carrying this on, it's too much, step back, all of that. So everything was crumbling under me. Thankfully, my children were kind of like in boarding house or away from home, so I didn't feel the impact. And I think God realized that, look, I need to save her. And one day I was actually at a prayer conference crying the same cry, Lord, you have to tell me what happened. My family is depending on me to tell them what happened to their daughter. I'm the firstborn. This was my daughter. And God again said to me, it's enough. I need to save you from this. Come out from here. Drop everything. He told me to drop the campaign, drop the advocacy. I was writing letters to the government in Nigeria, to the government in Poland. I was going to the embassy in the Polish embassy in Abuja, looking for answers. And he said, stop. Katrina, I was scandalized. I was like, what do you mean? You mean you won't let me know what happened to my sister and you're stopping me from finding out? What do I tell my family? But he was so definitive. He said, stop, because you're going to allow the devil steal from you twice. And I was like, what does that mean? Okay. So I stopped crying and he said, come, let's, like you were saying, let's take all this energy, all this anger, all this pain, all this guilt, and channel what you're feeling. I know you don't understand what I'm saying, but let's channel it into something good in honor of your sister. Sure, that will make you happy. And he knows that anything that will be in honor of my sister, I was going to be for it. And it was like, we're going to open a foundation. This was all his idea. It wasn't my idea, Katrina. I didn't say in 5 years' time, 10 years, I'm going to be an NGO founder. It wasn't even on the radar. It wasn't on the radar. I had no plans for that. And he showed me step by step till today. Everything I'm doing, people come to me and say, how did you figure it out? I'm like, I'm just sitting and saying, excuse me, sir, what are we doing next? Is God all the way? I don't have a clue. But God is the best coach I've had since then. And I registered the foundation, the Shola Adefolalu Gaskar Foundation. And it started out by just helping vulnerable women and all. And to the name, why did I keep Gaskar in that name? Because my family didn't want it there after everything that had happened. But I put that name there so that whenever the name of her foundation is called, their name will be in it to remind them that this life they tried to silence, keep on shouting loud, and their name will be a part of it. Her husband tried to zero-rise her and erase her existence from the planet and pretend like she never existed. And I'm like, no, not get away with that. Every time this foundation is mentioned anywhere, your name will be a part of it to remind you of what you did to my sister. To remind you. So whenever your family or your neighbors, whoever, see this name mentioned, as they are seeing it mentioned now, it will remind you of what you did to my sister, consciously or unconsciously. And that was how we started back then, 2017. And at first I didn't get it, but just like you're saying, when people come back and say, oh, thank you, this help you gave us, I felt, okay, there's some meaning from this that God has given me. There's some meaning. When people write you messages and say, oh, I'm so glad, or when you hear the smile in their voice. And that's why the foundation is also known as the Shirley Smile Factory. But Shirley had the most beautiful smile. And we're like, you remember, she had the most beautiful smile. So we want to reproduce those kind of smiles. So when you hear the smile in people's voices or you see them and they're so happy, like now we graduated from just helping vulnerable women and ladies and families. Now we're fighting poverty by giving out Shirley care packages, which we started in the middle of COVID. It was just supposed to be a one-off thing on Shirley's 40th birthday, but we've been giving out those food packages every month since 2020 September.
Wow.
We're fighting food poverty. Also, we're empowering women. Yes, fighting food poverty through the Shirley food care packages. They were first of all called the Shirley COVID-19 packages because remember in the middle of COVID, food was a thing.
Yes.
We're doing that. And then, and then from nowhere, God says to me, okay, you've done this 2017 to 2019. Well done. And mind you, through all of this, something I really like to share was I had to do a lot of forgiving. Anyone who's grieving, I always know that there's some kind of forgiving that will also be required. It was tough because Shirley's husband showed me shege. But yes, you remember he didn't let me get to Poland to be part of the burial.
Yeah, he cremated her before you.
Then he cremated her. oh gosh, he broke my heart. And then here I was, 2019, 2 years down, God is saying, look, I have work for you to do, but I can't give you that work. It's going to be in your sister's name, so I know you'll be happy. For you to do that work, you need to let this guy go and let his family go. Because I can't work with you with this unforgiveness in your
Yeah, because all the
hands.
evidence
Was
was
tough.
he had erased all the evidence. So trying to make the trail,
He
I
erased everything. He
remember that.
erased evidence. He killed, removed her body, took down all her websites. She was a photographer. She did wedding pictures. He took, what for the campaign, what for her foundation, he literally would have taken Shirley's existence off the face of this earth. It was like she'd
God
never
forbid.
existed.
God forbid. God forbid.
And he has failed. He has failed. So it took me a while to obey, but I realized that not only was God trying to help me because he wanted to use me, he knew that that unforgiveness was also tainting my other relationships as well, because of things I thought they didn't do or did do, or how I thought they didn't support me as I thought they should have supported me. So he knew that I needed to get rid of that to have fresh air come into my life again. And so he helped me to do it. He helped me to forgive. And that was when then on Shirley's 40th birthday, he now said, okay, now we're going to do something even bigger. This is our biggest errand to date. We're going to open a shelter for victims of domestic abuse. Remember that he had never told me what really happened to her. But in giving me this errand, that was him now letting me know what happened to Shirley. Because all this while, we were not really sure, because the husband said she was in an accident, that she was in a car accident. Then he said, oh no, she was sick and she was in the hospital. When God now sent me on the errand to open a Shirley Serenity Place, survivors of domestic abuse, it became clear that that was his way of saying, look, this is what happened to your sister. Now we're going to help other women that don't have to be in that same situation. And I found peace in that. Was way above my head, but I knew that my whole background, everything I'd done before now had prepared me for this job. From looking for the property to designing the interior to knowing how we're going to run, I knew how to project manage to deliver this. And I had people around me who could support me to do it. And this was 2020 September. Remember, he gave me by June 2021, that shelter was open. Katrina,
wow.
Can you imagine? Wow. It was open, and on July 2nd.
By force and focus, right?
Yes, that's it. And by July 2nd, 2021, we had our first family come in, a mother with her 3 children. And if you see that woman who came in that night, July 2nd, 2021, and the woman and her children today, you will not get the power, the transformative power of the love of God. Because one thing he said to me was that, I know you're not a pastor, you're not a counselor, you're not a coach per se, you don't have any of the certifications, but you have received my love and you continue to receive my love. All I'm asking you and your team is to pour out of the love I'm giving you into these lives. It will heal them. And that's the way we run the shelter. We just love on these women to the point where their hope is restored, where they can see that there's a future.
Love.
Where they can see that they are seen. Yes, we love them back to the point where hope floats again.
Oh, I love
We love
that.
them back to the point. We love them back to a point where their hope floats again. Their hope, because they come in dejected, distraught. They can barely look you in the eyes. They feel they've been battered to the ground. And when the love of God is being poured into them, it's like a flower. You just see them start to bloom again because they feel seen and loved and cared for. And it's amazing. When you talk about the transformative power of love and how the joy is being the ripple effect of what we're doing. This family is one case study for that, because now she's left us. She has her own place. Her children are in school, even to the point where she sent me a video. She was painting the walls in her new place. What color? yellow.
Yellow.
Yellow. Because she had come to realize that this is the joy that Mama Salt says gives her joy and color, and it represents her sister. If Shirley were a color, she would be yellow. If
Yellow.
Shirley were a cute creature, she would be a butterfly. If she were a flower, she would be a daisy. Because all these things are things that inspire us towards joy, towards cheer, towards hope, and all of that. So that, in a nutshell, is how Shirley has transformed my life from just being this woman, 3 children, married, working a day job, to now Salt, who is running a shelter, running a foundation that is impacting lives in honor of her sister, benefiting people, and God is getting the have known. Who would have known?
You just keep on running those errands. I
Running
love
those
that.
errands. Running those errands.
God's
That's
errand
it.
girl. I want you to
Yes.
just tell me a little bit for people who might want to support the work that you're doing, impacting women, children, and lives. What's the best way to support you? What are things that can be done?
Thank you. Thank you so much for asking us. So, we have 3 main errands that we run. The first one, like I mentioned, was the food care packages. Give out food every month, rice, beans, gari, and vegetable oil to families, vulnerable families in need. Right now, we're doing that across Lagos State, Abuja, and some other states. The second God errand we run is the shelter that I'm talking about, the Shirley Serenity Place, where we take care of survivors of domestic abuse and their children. Right now, we have 3 moms and 9 children at the shelter. And then the third God errand we run is the Alive initiative. It's after, so I spent a lot of years doing things in honor of my sister, but I had also lost my mother, my father, my uncle, and I felt at this point I needed to honor them as well. That's how the Adefolalu Love is a Verb initiative came about, Alive. And that is just like what you have in the States, where you have like a social security system. It's an informal social security system where we give out monthly salaries to the poorest of the poor women.
Oh.
And now we're across 8 states: Lagos, Ekiti, Bayelsa, Cross River, and Akwa Ibom states. So you have women, right now we have 25 women across those states and Oyo State getting 25,000 naira a month every month, and they're going to get it for 1 year. And the hope is that they will be empowered, they can save. So after 12 months, they should be able to stand on their own to an extent. Those are our 3 main errands. But you know that I'm under authority to God. He is my CEO. So sometimes he sends other things other things for us to do. Like now we have a young lady who is a cancer patient. She doesn't fall under any of these 3 main errands, but we've adopted her. And we met her when her husband sent her an SOS letter that she was on her deathbed. She needed chemotherapy, radiation, the whole shebang. And now she's good. She's healthy. She just finished her chemotherapy, had surgery. They had to take her off like her one of her breasts and all of that. And those are kind of ad hoc things that we also do with the help of our partners. So you can take any of these errands and say you want to give towards any of those errands. Okay. We're happy to take your funds. International givers, we have a global giving platform. It's the most trusted platform for international donors. You can give through that link.
So if anyone feels as if they want to be able to give and support from anywhere in the world, they would be able to support. I love that with the shelter. I am aware, I believe that the families can stay there for as long as 6 months, and they're able to have, a place to sleep, eat, kids go to school, and having that nurturing in that community. I just love the principle around how pouring the love of God into these women restores hope. And that hope trickles from the mother into the children, that love them back to a point where hope floats again. Are any of our soulmates in a space where hope has like moved to a new address? You've lost your hope. You've lost your belief that things will ever get better. Maybe you're even believing, you're telling yourself you're trash and you deserve maybe the maltreatment that you're experiencing, the lack of respect, the lack of love, and the downright battering and beating of you physically or even mentally. If you are in that space and feel as if you're about to break, this pepper is this is life threatening, there will be contact information that we'll provide so that you can access the services of the Charlie Smile Factory. I love calling the Charlie Smile Factory because this lady had a bright, brilliant smile that just radiates and ripples. But it's the Shola Adefalalu Gasca Foundation is the proper name. And the fact that they're doing food care packages monthly, that's a wonderful way to give to the lifeline of women and families. The shelter that actually receives people who needed to leave their homes and wouldn't have had a place to go otherwise. And they shelter them and love on them and bring them back to life through, the principle that love will restore hope. And then last but not least, the Alive initiative, which says that love is a verb. I love that. Ade fala you're going to help me with that, Salt. But love is a verb. So often we hear people say love, but they don't put the action behind it. So that this third initiative that she talked about, the three main areas, his third initiative is giving out monthly stipends. The Social Security, the network of Social Security is very thin and often non-existent in developing countries. So to be able to create this leg that gives $25,000 a month, and one of the programs that we're actually, we'll talk a little bit about that before we wrap up, because January 4th, we're actually doing a program, compass and setting the direction of your life. This is for our soulmates to participate in, but we will be taking 40% of those proceeds and putting it toward the Charlie Smile Factory, the Gasca Foundation, all of these three main errands. We want to be able to move some of our proceeds there. And for women who actually attend that program on January 4th, they will also get access to the credit registry, financial literacy online training courses, because as we look at our well-being, often we're looking at our mental well-being, we look at our physical well-being, but we must attend to our financial well-being. So access to those programs helps you. And the link to me was, I'm getting the $25,000 per month for a year. What are the best ways for me to multiply that? How do I take that seed and grow it? What are things I should do and those things that I should not do? And so Credit Risk's mission is to ensure that credit is available to people who need it throughout Africa. So these trainings, getting them in the hands of women, we know women, if you give something to a woman, she's going to multiply. That's what we do, is multiply. So give that knowledge, being able to multiply. So those are things that we believe that we can work hand in hand and work with Saul on the errands that God has been downloading to her. How do you feel about that?
I love it. I love it because that's exactly it. In fact, in one of the states, because in the states somebody has to sponsor the woman, and one of the states, Akwa Ibom State, she took it upon herself to do exactly that, because she said she wanted that at the end of the 12 month for her beneficiary, for her to be able to have been able to have saved something to now do something for herself. So yes, we agree that it's good to teach people how to fish. So we are in the space where we're giving you the fish. We need people like you to partner with us to now teach people how to fish. For now, we say you can't teach anybody to fish if they're hungry. So we want to take care of their hunger first. Then they can now have the peace of mind to learn. So she took it upon herself, and she's been training the woman to save a bit, invest a bit, in farming or whatever. so that at the end
Yes.
of 12 months, so at the end of 12 months, you won't be back to zero looking for another handout. That's not what we want.
Exactly.
That's why we made it 12 months, so that it's in 12 months, please figure out how you can multiply this, and then let's start giving you another stream of income, so you won't have to depend on it, and we can move on to another set of women. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, so as we begin to kind of wind down, you so elevate me when we speak. Whenever we talk, I just feel so upwardly spiraled, regardless where I'm coming from in my mood or my attitude or whatever. You just, your faith walk is just such a deep one. So when it comes to faith, I don't know if there's anything you can share, because it seems like it's such a significant role in your work. And this is the framework side of it, okay? We've talked about some of your peppers, and you've had several, and how you've begun to channel. But what might be a framework that someone listening to this might take away as step 1 or step 2? I don't want to get too linear, but you know what I'm saying. What are some things that maybe once they turn this off, they would be able to maybe visit inside themselves and begin to do to be a part of their own transformation, especially as far as faith is concerned?
Yeah, so my faith is what gives me my freedom to be.
Oh, faith gives
My
you
faith gives me
freedom
my
to be.
freedom to be.
Mm-hmm.
And the most important thing about my faith that is where I sit right now, is that no matter what happens to me, I'm running towards God. I don't care what it is. I run towards Him. Because many times when we go through things, the knee-jerk reaction is to go the opposite direction to God. Why did you let this happen to me? Why am I going through this? I don't care what it is. Even if I'm being bad, or I sin, or whatever, I think I'm not, I run towards God. I go and hide in His love for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
My favorite, to anyone listening, wherever you may be at, no matter what anybody has ever said to you, you have to choose to believe that God loves you. To have faith, you have to choose to believe. But to believe, you have to trust in what you're choosing to believe in.
Yes.
It's not going to come. It's not going to come just by you wanting to understand it or anything. No. God loves me, period. That is one thing I can offer to anyone who is listening to me. Because here's the thing. Even the resilience we're talking about, even the ability to get up and go and push through it and all of that, we really are only that. For me personally, is because at the end of the day, I know that God has got me. And while I may not understand what's going on, He will make a way out of it. Mm-hmm. That resilience, that get up and go, if it's only in ourselves, there's going to come a point where we have nothing to give ourselves.
It's depleted. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It's depleted.
It's depleted.
It has to be from a higher source. So I choose to make that higher source my God and my faith. And I know that He loves me. I've lost my mom, my dad, my sister, my stepmom, and her son just this year. And I know that I believe that God will heal him. I had the faith. You don't know this, Patrina. I'm telling you for the first time. He was just 27 years old. He found out that he had a brain tumor at the burial of his mom, who died last October. Yes, we brought him to Lagos January. By February, he was dead. And we prayed, Patrina. And I know that God is real. How did I come back from that? I had 3 sentences. God is still God. God is still good. And God loves me. That's the only way I could crawl out of that dark space and come back again to the land of the living. Because here I was, back-to-back deaths in my family. People were beginning to wonder what's happening in this Adefolalu family. Everybody's just dying. How do you cope with that? For me, the resilience that you need is my anchor.
My
That is my
anchor.
anchor. And let me rise in my mountain highs or my valley lows. Yeah, he's my anchor. And whether I'm riding a crest of some nice high or whether I'm in the valley down in the dumps, nothing changes. Because the truth of the matter is that as a Christian, we're not even promised a life that is a bed of roses. Jesus told us that there will be tribulations. Well, he said we will overcome in them. And I overcome knowing that I'm loved. And that's all I need. That's literally all I need. And I've come to the point where I've settled it. Even with, because as a mom, you worry about your children, you worry about this. I've come to the point where, God, I just trust you. You're sovereign. This is what I would like, but I choose to surrender to your will in any way, shape, or form. That's what has given me peace. Honestly, people say, oh no, Salt, you're so serene, nothing shakes you. I'm like, no. Trust me, it could shake me, but only that I'm anchored in the knowledge that I know that God loves me. And I think at the end of the day, and it's not a head knowledge. It has to be something that you know deep inside. Because many times, nothing on the outside is going to be showing that. So I said, God is always good. God is always God, and God loves me. That is how there's so many things that could have zeroized me, pushed me out of the way. Yeah, but that what has kept me going. That has what has kept me going.
You know the song by Mary Mary? What you don't know is when I get home, it's the God in me. It's the God in me.
It's the God in me. Exactly. Yes.
It's the God. Yeah. You see all of this on the outside, and she's like, what you don't know is I get on my knees. I get on my knees and I'm talking to my Father. I'm talking to my God. Having that relationship is a key framework. Yes, we're talking spirituality today. We're talking spirituality today because so many things that are material can dissolve. We found my sister passed away, right? And so many questions. So I'm with you. I had to surrender. And keep moving, right? Some digging and some answers you don't, you're just not able to deal with it anyway. So some things you move on and you just accept.
Yeah, I agree. The thing is that the faith that we have to have in God most of the time doesn't involve understanding. The trusting God doesn't. You don't have to understand what he's doing to trust him, because then he's not God. Then he's not really faith. If you understood it, then it's no longer faith, because there's no evidence. So God had to bring me to that point where I wanted to understand why she had to die, but he was like, then that's not trusting me. I told you to trust me. And that's what I always try to tell people now. But this is the latest lesson I learned just February to date, because it was really a tough time for me, because I had to try and explain to his sisters. We prayed, we fasted, we did everything we need to do to keep him alive. So if it was about praying, and we did everything we knew, so we're like, God, why? But there was no answer to the why. So it was like, do we let this push us towards God or push us away? I have no choice. Everything in my life, no matter good or bad, it must push me towards God, because that's all I have. That's all I have. And at the end of the day, Petrinia, we're just passing through here. We're just passing through here. This is not our home. So why are we trying to find everything we need here when it's just temporary? The ultimate goal, the ultimate meaning, the ultimate hammer, the ultimate blowing for us is to go home and see Jesus. Amen. Anything we're getting here is just temporary. So whether you have or you don't have, it's fine. When you really make it on the best Oscar, the best Pulitzer, the best whatever award is when you see Jesus, So that's what keeps me focused. That, leave it. God, wherever you're taking me to, let's be going there. I did a podcast recently for my son, and I was like, because he was whining that this life wasn't really all about, it seems so meaningless. So if I pass my exam, if I don't pass, the world will still going. If I get a job, if I get an internship. And I'm like, you know what? You're absolutely correct. It's a fact. This life has nothing meaningful to really offer us. The only meaning is Jesus. The only purpose is meeting Jesus. Start learning to put Jesus in that donut hole in your heart, because he's the only thing that can feel kind of things will fulfill us. But no, the only thing that can really fulfill us is knowing that we're pleasing God and that he is the center of our lives. When you're in that space, whether you have or you don't have, you're still full. Do you get it? But
I love it.
and God
That
has created
donut
us to
hole in
desire
your
him. That's
heart.
why that longing is this house. I get the best visa, or the foundation yeah. God put it there, but it's for him. He wanted us to put him in that hole, but we left him and we're chasing everything else to fill it, but it won't work. That's why we feel empty so many times. That's why people who make all the money, the hole is God-shaped, is Jesus-shaped. Only Jesus can fill it. And until you get there, then always feel like something is missing. And many times when I feel that way, I know it's because I've stopped making Jesus the center of my life. That's it, my sister. So even the foundation, everything we're doing, I always make sure at the end of the day that my purpose is, okay, God, are you happy? Are we doing the right thing? Not in just the work we're doing. I'm very happy. I'm very grateful. Oh my gosh, I'm so thankful for all the work we're doing through Shirley's Foundation. But what I'm most thankful for is that I am walking in the will of my Father in this season of my life.
I love it. I love it. I wanted you to just give the name of the global giving platform.
Yes, there's a global giving platform. If you just Google global giving and you go to the Shola Adefolalu Gaska Foundation, it will bring us up. But we also have a bank in Nigeria for those who are in Nigeria. But we also take donations in kind. In fact, it's one of my favorite kinds of donations: provisions, toiletries for the shelter. We do that. We love those as well. The primary ways to give are through the global giving platform and through our First Bank account here in Nigeria.
Okay, perfect. And we'll make sure
totally relate.
We have all that listed with the episode. Is there I get to do wrap up. So I'm going to do some wrapping up. So we started on our sister campaign where we just remembered kind of our love and connection for each other. See, you and I worked together. I was there from 2006 to 2019, 13 years. So at least been in the same company together, and our paths kept crossing. But you've just been a sister, and I'm just so proud of how you've allowed God to use you. I just want you to keep radiating. The blows, that somehow they do still keep coming. I think the gift from grief has to be how we choose to frame, because what we frame is where we focus. So framing those difficulties in a way of, what can I learn? How can this be a blessing somehow? Asking those questions and having those conversations with God and making sure that you're taking time to listen.
Yeah, absolutely. Every step of the way, everything. Remember, I know you commented on that post. Remember, I was saying, oh, I wish we could get some corporate donors. Well, here I am, really thankful for the individual donors, because they have carried us for and you just said that's reframing, because I could keep on focusing on the lack of corporate donors and miss out on the blessings that we have. Human beings, individuals who believe in our work and are giving us all these years. And so I took that, okay, this is how you reframe. And honestly, since you commented on that post, I've now been more conscious of reframing, because sometimes you're doing something, don't even realize that's what you're doing. Then when you realize that, you can actually then intentionally do that the next time. So thank you for that comment that you left on that post. Thank you.
Okay. Well, God bless you. We could go on and on, but I hope that we have met our mission of sharing this very important story. Salt's life has so many examples of where she could have derailed and been zeroized. I'd never heard that term before, but I get it, because people do allow themselves to be taken out of the game, don't hear from them anymore. I think you've also helped us to really link into seasons, and how in different seasons you may call yourself something, God may help you to transform into something, but your identity makes a difference in how you show up, what you radiate, what you attract, how you're able to affect your atmosphere because it is a choice. The space between stimuli and response is choice. And choosing what's available for you to be able to make good. And you talk about channeling pain into purpose. That's all about choosing that I won't let unforgiveness eat me alive too. My sister's already dead. Do I need to be dead too because of it? Actively choosing there's another
Exactly.
way
Exactly.
and getting a partner on your journey, knowing that it isn't all about you. It's not about your ego. It's about where God wants you to go,
Yeah.
not your ego, but where He wants you to go. Hey, I like that. All right. So
Exactly. I like that.
stay blessed, my sister. And
Thank you.
Pepper Soup Stories, we'll add all of our little outro in at the end, but I'm just feeling I'm glowed right now. I'm glowed up. You see my yellow? I'm feeling my
I
yellow.
see. I see. I see. I see.
All
Thank you,
right, my
Patrina. Thank you.
thank
Thank you
you.
so
All right.
much.
If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, share with a friend, leave a review, and connect with us on social media. Your support means the world to us. Until next time, soulmates, stay inspired, keep growing, and turn life's peppers into a flavorful soup. Connect below. Bye bye for now.